Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rookie Pastors Podcast, a podcast of casual conversations about real ministry by real pastors. My name is Kyle Neiman, and I am joined this week by Brian Colley and Josh Prince. Guys, how are y'all doing this week?
Pretty good.
I'm here.
Good.
It's good. It's back to the real world after the holidays.
Sure, yeah. Always fun
Yeah.
to get back into the swing of things.
Yep.
I felt miserable last week because I was like, oh man, you really got to get back up to speed. But yeah, it's going smooth here too.
We had our office was closed for 10 days. And I did not preach the Sunday between Christmas and New Year's. So when I walked back in the office, it was like, what do we do? Like, where do we start?
Where am I?
Yeah, we
What is
do
this
not know
place?
what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah, and how the holidays fell, like it really kind of landed for a longer break there. So definitely is weird. But back in the swing of things now. And this week for our episodes, we get back into the new year, really thinking about how we encourage our church and we look at vision for our church. We're going to talk a little bit about missional mindset today. But I want to ask you guys if you had any funny or crazy mission trip stories that you could share. I feel like we all have fun, but wanted to hear from you guys what you might have there.
So I have multiples, but the one I landed on that I most want to share is we used to take our students to Houston, and we would go down to Montrose, which is a really nice area of Houston, but there is also a really large homeless population. And so they do street church. And so we went down and we're hanging out, and we were getting our kids post our missional time with the homeless back to the van. And one of our students was missing. So I sent some of our leaders and our girls and some of our guys back to the vans. Me and a few leaders go back to try and find our student who has disappeared, and hoping that he's not now living with a homeless person. We did find him, but in that time, a homeless man that was heavily influenced by drug and alcohol came up, and he really took to one of our girls, and then he tried to take one of our girls. He grabbed her.
No.
And so one of our
Nice.
college sponsors was able to remove his hands and push him away in a
Man.
non-confrontational way. He actually handled it really, really well. And so we came upon the scene, and our girls are crying and our guys are all like, steaming. We get in the bus, and all the girls are on one bus. All the guys are on my bus. And the guys start to talk about what they would have done in that situation. And I said, guys, there are only two of us in this van right now that were not part of the situation. So all of you could have done, but you chose not to do. And it was
Talking a
great
big
because the
game.
girls were so mad at all the guys, except for that one college leader. Like, he became their hero. It was awesome. Like, they were wanting to buy him stuff at the convenience store. It was great. They shunned the boys for the rest of the trip.
Sure.
Because not a single one of them did anything. It was awesome.
That's awesome.
That's great. So we were taking a group of high schoolers to Salt Lake City for a World Changers mission trip. We had two vans, and we'd spent the night somewhere around Denver. I can't remember because it was a long drive. And the next morning, it was Sunday morning, and we were going to, we were back in the vans. We stopped at McDonald's for breakfast, and we're going to get on the road and make the final trek into Salt Lake City. I had this kid in my youth group that the most accurate description for him is Napoleon Dynamite. Just that kid, if you've ever been in youth ministry, everybody has that kid.
The birds have large talons.
And so we're getting ready to leave McDonald's. I'm doing a head count on the vans, make sure we have everybody. I see him sitting in the back row of one of the vans, like put eyes on him, physically see him. 5 minutes later, we're 10, 15 miles down the road, and somebody says, "Where is he?" And I'm like, "Where's who?" He had gotten out of the van and didn't tell anybody that he was going to the restroom. And so we left him at McDonald's. We realized it, turned around. He's just sitting on the curb at McDonald's waiting for us. This is like early cell phone days for every kid having one. So some had them and some didn't. And so he's like, it didn't bother him at all. Nothing. And I'm like freaking out. I'm going to lose my job. And luckily I was really close with his parents, and they're like, yeah, we leave him places all the time. But the hard part about that was before I could reach out to somebody on leadership at my church back home that morning, every kid had let mom and dad know Brian left him at the McDonald's in Colorado.
Right.
Yeah, so
Sunday morning
that
prayer
was a
request.
that was not a very relaxing mission trip after that point because I
Sure.
didn't know if when I got home I was going to have a job or if they should just leave me in Salt Lake City and go. So, but yeah,
Well, my story doesn't involve leaving any children or losing any students. So I've taken a few mission trips to Vietnam, and on one of these trips, we were traveling up into the mountains, and we stopped at a rest stop area to have a meal. And so this restaurant was really like just a big like awning, and with like tables underneath and a whole bunch of plastic chairs and whatnot. And so our whole group gets out and we're sitting at the tables and waiting for the food to show up, just hanging out. I hear the the very clear sound of plastic cracking underneath me as all of a sudden the chair gives out entirely and I just hit the floor. And
I'm
I'm
there.
like, cool. Yeah. Big American uh, who, uh, who sat in the plastic chair. Gotcha. Everybody has a good laugh. Checks them. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. They bring me another chair. And um, not 3 minutes later, that one goes out, and bam, I'm on the ground again, and I'm just like, I'll stand, it's fine." And they're like, and the sweet, people at the restaurant, "No, no, 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 it's our fault, it's our fault." And they bring another plastic chair, but what it is, it's two of the plastic chairs they've stacked on top of each other for extra reinforcement. So, so yeah, needless.
Did that change what you ordered from the menu that day?
No, no, it didn't. And I wish I could say, and on that day, I lost 50 pounds from there, but no, I've gained significant weight since then. So clearly I didn't learn my lesson. But needless to say, going through two chairs and then the embarrassment of them bringing the double stack chair for me. Yeah, that was something else.
Same
But
way you like your
broke
burgers.
a plat I broke a plastic chair
the
like
double
that in
stack.
Guatemala, and everybody thought it was funny, except for the lady who walked up to me with her hand open for me to give her money to purchase a
Yes,
new chair.
replace the
Yeah,
chair, big
and I
man.
was like, I'm sorry."
Sorry, I don't have it. Oh man. Well, don't let any of those stories deter you from engaging in missional work. That's half the fun is having wonderful stories like that to share and whatnot. But we do all, just as pastors, feel a burden to ensure that our churches have a missional mindset. And so, what I want to ask you guys is, our podcast being about rookie pastors, when you first got to your church, how did you begin to evaluate the missional focus? What did you find, and how did you gauge that?
Here we go, Josh. Yeah, it's asking just ask questions like, what do you do? Like, do you do anything missional minded? And the fun part, difficult part, frustrating part about that is most people you talk to when you get to your church don't truly understand what that means. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we do this, we do this." No, no, like, I'm talking about like truly mission oriented and just asking those questions. Then before you even get to the church, those are good questions to ask, but also looking at their budgets. You can tell if they have a missional focus or not by looking at their budget. And so then when you see, oh yeah, they've been doing this, that makes it easier. Fortunately, my situations have not been that way. And so it's now building that in. That's part of revitalization. I think when you get into a revitalization situation, they typically have that's the last thing on their mind is continuing. Other than, Annie Armstrong, Mary Hill Davis, and Lottie Moon.
Yeah. So coming here, I came from a church that struggled financially to a church that has never really, I mean, in the last decade or so, had a financial struggle and probably longer than that. And so the evaluation was actually pretty easy financially. You could see, that we were a generous church. We gave to Baptist entities and beyond that. And there were even some who, had a passion in their Sunday schools. And so they were giving to certain organizations like, Samaritan's Purse and stuff. So the evaluation financially was great. It was detailed. We could see it. And a lot of times when you would start to ask questions about what we had done as far as like physically going, that was very past tense. A lot of that had to do with the age of most members. It was harder. They had some connections with some missionaries who maybe were no longer on the field anymore. But really it came down to is just that fact that there weren't a lot of young people, and for Brian and I stories, right? Like a lot of churches, mission emphasis is student ministry heavy, right? It's when the students go on mission trips. That was a thing we had to change at the last church I was at. I was the missions minister. It was part of my job. And so we had to shift that. We had to get our adults with a mission mindset of, no, I'm not just giving to something, I'm going to something. And that's not, not everyone is able to do that. But the evaluation of like, what can we feasibly do? And that took a while. And we'll get to that more of kind of how we led the church to start to look outside itself, and to start looking outside of just the financial backing you can give to missionaries. How can we physically support mission work and all that kind of stuff? But yeah, I think like, to Brian's point, it's asking those questions. That's what I had to do. What have we done? What was the church passionate about? What is it passionate about? Because you could build a trip or, build a local outreach opportunity based on those passions that maybe has gone to the wayside or has never been. And that's really good. So yeah, I double what Brian says. Just ask those questions. Really good to have that communication with people.
Yeah, I walked into a situation kind of similar to what both of you are describing. Our church is really good at giving to the annual Baptist offerings for missions, and way above what you would expect for the size of church that we are. Just a generous church. But when it came to the question, asking those questions, okay, what are y'all doing in missions? And it was just kind of like shoulder shrugs. As you said, Josh, that kind of past tense, that's something we were doing. When we had a staff member that ran that, or when we had a pastor who had this particular motivation or something like that, and there was no identity. The identity was really tied to, again, a person, specific ministry, or specific class. So a lot of what you're talking about, so those are some things to really look out for if you're coming into a church new, being able to ask those questions. Yeah, looking at the budget, looking at what they've given to those additional ministries, but also if they have done recent mission trips, who are the people who have been leading that involvement? Are they still around? Do they still have that call and that drive and that passion? Those are all some things to really help you gauge where the church is at right then and there with in regards to their missional focus. So once we've gauged that, once we've started to evaluate that, which I think is an ongoing process, by the way. I don't think you ever say, we're done gauging that. I think even, when we have been at a church for 3, 4, 5 years, and longer, we have to still say, how are we doing in these things? But with that initial kind of evaluation, and what are some of the first steps that you have taken, or you would take to get involved in missions both locally and globally?
So, our people were familiar with IMB, obviously, International Mission Board, because of our Baptist roots. And so figuring out how do we partner with that, that's become a newer thing for us. So we started a partnership this last year. We've had one of the missionaries, because there's a group of missionaries that serve in the Southeast Asia country that we go to. And so one of them was in town. And so she came on a Sunday morning. We prayed for her. There's been a couple that's stateside now, and so they're coming this week to worship with us, and then we're going to have them, which we'll get into this more of kind of how you create a long-term relationship. But so we'll have them share. So it was cool because people were familiar for the most part with IMB. Now we get to go actually serve with IMB. And what we did on that front, as far as a global trip, is we just reached out to IMB and we said, "Hey, can you help us partner with somebody?" And they made the introduction. It was really cool. And most Southern Baptist churches, they do have a missionary that IMB has partnered your church with. Sometimes we just don't know it. And so they'll give you that information. If nothing else, maybe you're not going, but you can be praying for that person. You can be, ministering to them from afar. There's some really cool, unique ways for that. Locally for us, so that was where we really launched out, because the reality is, okay, we don't have a lot of people who can go, but we have a lot of people who are here. So what are some things that we can do, which is what kind of birthed this whole We Love 75104 thing for our church, which is our zip code, is how can we minister to Cedar Hill? And so for the first 3 or 4 summers of us being here, that's what we did. We did local mission projects. We're going to revamp that this next year. In fact, we had a all committee meeting this last Sunday, and I sat down with our missions committee and I said, we love 75104, right? We say it all the time. We've got it painted on the side of our building. So we're in it. But how do we prove that we love 75104? Like, what proof is there? Would people in the community say that First Baptist Church of Cedar Hill loves 75104? And so we're going to begin to explore that some more. Like, what are some ways that we can make clear that we love, but more importantly, God loves this community and the communities that surround it. But where it started for us was it was a week-long trip. In the mornings, we were going out to the community doing different service projects. In the afternoons, we were cleaning up the church campus, clearing out old storage and closets and eating together, having fun. The next year, we did similar things. We did some gospel training, and then we went out. And in the mornings, we would knock on doors and talk with people. In the afternoons, we would do service projects. We transitioned it to a weekend the year after that, and it was just a long weekend of ministering. So there's some great little local things that you can do in addition to, which we should be doing, of partnering with some local ministries that could really utilize church help and encouragement, which is what we have going on as well.
Yeah, one of the things here is we had some stuff already happening locally that, lean into that if you've got something that's already happening. But as you're leaning into it, continue to make them aware, hey, this is mission. This is missional work that we're doing right here. I think one of the best ways to do it, if you are blessed to have some semblance of student ministry in your church, is use that as an avenue to get the adults involved. If you can convince an adult to go on a mission trip, I've seen this numerous times. If they can go with a student because we just need chaperones and they want the kids to be safe and everything, their lives are really changed on those trips, and they are now become champions for you to help push that culture forward. And it takes time. And I would discourage you to do not walk into your church that has never done any kind of mission work and say, we are going to go to Afghanistan.
Insert
Probably,
country here, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably not going to take, right? But start small and work up, get people passionate about it, get people, educate them. Like Josh said, bring the IMB or any kind of missionary. If you're not Southern Baptist, you probably have connected with missionaries. We are beginning percolate in our minds. We have some international students here for their undergraduate and their graduate degrees, and I know several of them are connected with churches in their home country. One is even her husband is a pastor, and so that's like a natural bridge for us to be able to connect with an international ministry opportunity and go. And so chances are you don't have that, but you might have some sort of connection somewhere in your church that you don't know about. And that's getting to know your people as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I think we have this urgency as pastors. We feel like, oh, we're not doing anything locally or globally mission wise. Like we got to go, we got to do it, we got to do it. And so that anxiety can really work against you. You can get so in the mindset you have to go and do it, and you kind of miss some of the available open doors that are already in your community. I felt that when I first came to the church. I see all the things that we could do. We need to do a food bank and a clothing bank or whatever. You need to do all these things, and we need to go here and go here. And I just had to stop and say, what's already here? What's already happening in the community? And so, one thing I met with a lot of other churches said, what avenues are you guys going with? Hey, can we partner with something that y'all are already doing locally? Like I think when it comes to local missions, do whatever you can to give your church early and frequent wins, like these moments where they go and say, that was impactful and it didn't take you too much effort. So, partnering with ministries that already exist is a great way to do this with needs that are already really apparent. Just stepping in and getting those kind of quick slam dunk wins. And what you're doing is developing this identity as a church of, like, hey, we are already being helpful. And the same thing with global missions is look for the stuff that's already happening, the easy entries. So like what you were saying, Brian, where are the connections we already have, or maybe within a local association or another church close by who's going on a mission trip, where can we step in easily? I thought because of previous mission trips I had been on, previous passions that I have for different countries around the world, I'm like, oh, we're going to be going to these different areas. And that's just not what happened. We had a door that opened in Thailand for us. And so that's where we ended up going, just to bless some of the IMB missionaries that are there. And so a huge part of this is just not trying to push too fast look for those easy first steps, those easy wins for your church. I think that's the advice I would give.
Well, and to your point, even with that first question, and we talked about the questions of the church. We need to ask those questions of the community too, right? We've talked about the 7 interviews before, right? That's getting us into the community with people who are in the community and asking them, hey, where do you see the need? But even to go into, we have a connection with a local ministry who ministers, far beyond the city limits of Cedar Hill. It's cool, like the things that we've gotten to partner with them. Sometimes that partnership is them just using our space. They'll have like a leadership meeting that they need, and so we'll give them a space on our campus. It's an encouragement to them. We've hosted some of their bigger giveaway events. We've done diaper drives for them. Like there's all kinds of different things you can do, but it comes through asking that question. We're trying to work on that with a local school that we got partnered with through the ISD. They partnered churches and schools, and that's been hard because the school says, man, we really want this, but there's not a ton of follow through. And so we have some people who are leading the way on our like just church members who are saying, okay, well, we can't wait on them to give us all of these things. So let's do what we can do. And what we can do right now is we can encourage teachers. So they, every couple months are taking some gifts over there too. So there's these great little opportunities that if you start asking, the entities around you, what can we do to serve alongside you? How can we help you? That's great. And then as they're engaging with local church member or local community members, maybe church comes up and they say, oh yeah, we love First Baptist Cedar Hill. There could be that
Yeah.
connection where you never know who might come in the door from that organization or who was, blessed by that organization because you were willing to serve them. So there's kind of that kind of bonus in a way that you get from that potentially.
And with that, I just love the different kind of perspectives that you guys have. And one of the things we've even said is just this idea already of the church that we come into maybe had some history with that. And so there's a clear picture that a church can go through seasons of being really passionate about local or global missions and that falling off at some point. And for me, I don't want to be part of that story for this church. And so, with that being the case, how do you create a culture of long term missional engagement? What does it look like to build something that is going to last beyond your tenure at the church or even the tenure of some of the volunteers or some of these like local ministries that sometimes come and go, connections come and go? How do we create a culture of that long-term missional engagement? What does that look like?
I think the first step is to recognize Acts 1:8. And it's part of the revitalization process. But you need to be able, as a church, to identify your Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then the ends of the earth. And Josh, your Jerusalem is your zip code, right? And we're kind of split on zip codes here, so we couldn't do that. But Jerusalem is pretty obvious. It's your immediate surrounding area. But identifying those other places, and continually putting that in front of your people. Whether it's something on the wall, it's once a quarter you're highlighting some sort of ministry or mission work that's happening in that area, or and ultimately making sure you're going to those places as well, and your people are seeing it and seeing the fruit. And when you get back from those places, you're sharing what happened. And just making you have to be very intentional about it. Keep it at the forefront, always pushing it forward, pushing it forward, pushing it forward. We're a university town, have a fairly large BSM here. That's instant ministry for us to be able to work with. And like this past Sunday, we pulled up their leadership that come to our church, and we just prayed over them because I wanted our church to know that's a mission work in our community that we can be a part of and support. I wanted them to know we love them, but I wanted our church to know this is our opportunity.
Yeah. I would
Good.
say, culture is developed through emotions like passion. It's developed through experiences. And so if you want a culture of mission in your church, then you have to be going and sending people. And then, allowing those who don't get to experience it firsthand because they couldn't go or can't go or won't go to hear the stories of what those people experienced, allowing sacrificing a bit of time in a service that maybe you would like to preach or sing an extra song to make sure that those stories are being told. We've talked throughout this podcast, right, about the necessity of storytelling. And so letting those testimonies draw people in and encourage them. I think when you can have a long-term connection. So for the church I was at when I was in the church before I got here, we could not financially back a lot of things because of our struggles. But we made the commitment to certain missions. Hey, we're going to come to you guys repetitively for a few years because we want to create a connection. And that helped. We had people who were reoccurring. They every time that trip would come available each year, man, they were right back on it and they were trying to get other people to come with them. And that was creating a culture, right? There was this expectation, this excitement. We saw it this year. We sent a team this last summer to Southeast Asia. We figured out the dates recently. It was promoted again this Sunday as just kind of a teaser. And the same people who went on the trip last time want to go on it again. And I'm sure that there's going to be a few more who add to it. Like that's creating that culture. But I think also there's already a culture you're coming into. So we do like to change and we do need to change, but we have to continue to encourage a culture that already existed. So where our people are already passionate about, don't take those things away. Maybe you've got to rework them to some degree. Maybe some money needs to be pulled out that was going there so you can continue to support something else or start to support something else. But there's already a culture. And so encourage that culture, bring it in. For us, for years, this church has been giving to Texas Baptist Men, which is now Texans on Mission. And so we want to continue to highlight that what we've been giving to financially, hey, look, there's also this physical partnership that we can have with them. We can get you Yellow Cap certified. So now you're increasing a culture that was already there. There's even more elements. There's even more plugins that you can figure out of how you can connect to that. And it just kind of opens the narrative a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, so what I'm hearing is just like this communicating this legacy story of missional work, tying that together with things you're already doing, tying this together with the heartbeats and rhythms of the church. And then when we send people, we make sure that they know they're part of this continual story. And then we make sure the church knows that what we've done, just kind of continue putting together this picture of long-term work and how it all builds together. And so really all that really echoes what I wanted to share. The church I grew up in Keller, Texas, and the pastor there had this saying. It was kind of a calling on his own heart to ask this question: what if the church itself was the missionary? Was what he asked, and that's always stuck with me. This idea of, instead of the focus only being on there are missionaries and then there are people who stay at a church. What if the church itself looked at itself as the one who goes? And one of the ways that played out is when we would go on a mission trip, we would build relationships with people. And then when we came back, we would share those pictures with the next trip that was going. And we'd say, hey, go find this person. Here's a business card where their restaurant is or where their shop is. Here's a picture of me with them. Go carry on that relationship. And so the church's group as a whole, when they went, they were carrying on that story. It was like the missionary never really left. We kept sending groups, and those stories kept building on one another. And brings another thing up that I think is, when it comes to global missions, me personally, I think it's important to find your place as a church rather than hopping around country to country every year. And that can be really beneficial, those short-term mission trips. But I think the a long-term engagement in a region of the world where you can build relationships is such a lasting thing, and it says so much um, about the efforts of the church as a whole, and it really builds up that, again, that story of a legacy of mission efforts and fulfilling the Great Commission. So that's that's the way we seek to do it here, whether we're doing it locally or globally. We try to be the missionary as a church, not thinking that any one person has to carry the torch on their own, but that everyone who goes, whether for a little mission trip, whether going to mentor a fourth grader, whether they're helping at a food bank, all of this is us carrying that torch for the church as a whole. It keeps that picture of our global and local vision at the forefront. That's what we do as a church. Well, overall, I hope this has been encouraging to you. I hope you are, whatever context you're in, you find this helpful to stir up a missional mindset at your church. And I know it's been helpful to me just hearing you guys' stories. I'm always grateful. Josh, I think I told you I was stealing one of your ideas for a sermon. I did that or a couple weeks ago. So I'm always encouraged by you guys and thankful for that. So appreciate y'all's insight today. Anything y'all want to share as we wrap up?
So there's a book called When Helping Hurts. I've never read it, but I've heard incredible things. I've always wanted to read it. I don't even have it. I've just heard about it.
That's
But I think
hilarious.
if you are navigating kind of the challenges of, what does it look like to get connected? Once again, I haven't read the book. I've just multiple times I've heard it recommended. That might be a great resource, right? If Dustin were here, he'd ask us what books we recommend because he's a nerd. But that's one of those ones where it causes you to pause and think through, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And to your missional point of the church being the missionary, like, what are we doing to really help instead of just dropping off momentary care and then packing up and leaving? Like, how is there a legacy of mission taking place? I think those things are really important. And that's apparently what that book talks about. So if we were to give a resource, that is a resource that's out
I think just one final thing it's important to remember, especially when it comes to the global missions and the international, going internationally and stuff. Don't be scared. It's okay. There are some scary places, but there's lots of places that if you're just trying to begin this culture with your people, and you've been doing local really well, and now you want to go internationally, there's a lot of countries that are very receptive to it. We went to Guatemala one year, and there might have been 5 people on our plane that were not going on a mission trip. And that was a great first international trip for a lot of people. So just use your connections. There's lots of mission organizations out there. I'm sure Josh and Kyle can put some in the comments to let you look. Dustin definitely would, along with 10 books, but don't be afraid of it. If God is calling you to do it, he's going to make it possible for you to do it in every possible way.
Yeah. And we need to be doing global missions. One of the things, if you're like, hey, I need to focus on what's going on here, I promise you, doing global missions stirs the work of local missions in the church.
Absolutely.
And so engage in both. Don't think that no, we have too small of a team. Again, partner with another church, find an organization that's okay with a team of 3, 4, or whatever. Just go. Really get that ball rolling. Awesome stuff.
Hey, quick question, and
I was
I
going to
don't
wrap
want
up,
to take
Brian.
long, but this just hit me because they're rookie pastors and they might not know. Like, you're the pastor going to go on the trip. How do you fund it? Do you pay for it yourself? Does the church budget for you to go? Do you raise support? What's your thoughts on that, real quick?
Boy, that's a whole different podcast, isn't it?
I know, but
My
it
quick
just hit
answer
me.
is, if I'm leading the trip, then I would expect the church to help. If I'm not leading the trip, I'm attending the trip because, like, we have somebody who leads our trips, then I would need to figure out my own funds and, apply for the same scholarships that the rest of our teams can. But if I'm not the lead of the trip, then I would not expect the benefits of church paying.
That is a whole nother episode, but
Yeah.
somebody might be hanging on that right there.
I think that probably is fundraising for mission trips is a whole different thing. Every one of the mission trips I've done, the church has never paid for it. Always been self-funded, and I just reach out to family, friends, network connections, and the Lord has always provided. And I've seen that happen time and time again. So, yeah, don't let money be the reason you don't go. There are people who want to be a part of that story, and they want to hear about it, who want to live kind of vicariously through you. Let them, So don't be afraid to ask for support in those ways. Great question, though, and we really should do a podcast maybe about fundraising in general, both missional fundraising as a church or ministries. That would be a really interesting topic. But too much to talk about now, Brian. We're wrapping up the episode.
Yeah,
Man,
I'm sorry.
right at the end. But no, thanks for listening to the podcast, everybody. Wonderful conversation. Hope you enjoyed that as well. If you like the podcast, make sure you leave us a review. Give us 5 stars. 5 stars? Can you do that? That'd be great. And then follow us on social media, Rookie Pastors Pod, unless you're on X, and that's just Rookie Pastors. And so thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We will see you next time, because we won't see them next time. We don't see them. There's not a live studio audience.
So we
It's
didn't
okay.
do the hat giveaway. Are we not giving away a hat?
Was it supposed to do that this episode?
I don't know.
I'll do it next time.
I'll think
No
I'm on the
hat for
next
you.
episode, so go ahead. Yeah.